Hello, everyone. Welcome to the One Take. Uh, Pleasure to be with all of you today, talking about a really, really important topic for not just our industry, but hundreds of thousands of people that might be impacted by it across multiple corporations throughout the United States. It is an extremely, extremely important topic for every single one of you. So I hope you pay close attention, open up your ears and minds. And I appreciate being joined here by some really knowledgeable individuals and leaders from our industry. Thanks to each one of you for joining. I'm joined here by just going around the screen, Nate Dodge, Chairperson and CEO of the Dodge NP Dodge Companies, the owner of NEI Global Relocation. Bob Olmsted, President and Chief Operating Officer of Sirva, and John Morreale, President of Morreale Real Estate Services. Gentlemen, thank you for being with me here today to talk about this important topic.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks. Excellent. I want to dive straight in. We don't have a whole lot of time, literally, not just for this one take, but don't have a whole lot of time on the calendar to get everyone into action as quickly as possible. Many of you have already taken action, so thank you for that. But for those of you that haven't yet, there's not a whole lot of time, so we want to get to the discussion right away. But just to set the quick context, and you will have seen a lot of other content published by WRC in the past couple of weeks, including emails going out to all of you about the 21st Century Road to Housing Act, labeled as HR 6644. That is currently being considered by the US Congress. It contains restrictions on, well, it's largely focused on housing in the United States, as the name says, but it does contain some restrictions on large institutional investors owning homes and housing. And that has an implication for us, as we'll unpack, but that's essentially what we're here to talk about today. So I'll give you a quick, very, very quick introductions on each of these gentlemen. Nate Dodge is the Chairperson and CEO of NP Dodge Companies, as I mentioned, based in Omaha, Nebraska. Nate is the fifth generation Dodge to lead the NP Dodge companies since it was founded by his great-grandfather in 1855. Wow. And it is the longest running real estate company in the United States. NP Dodge Company has 6 wholly owned divisions, including NEI Global Relocations, Dodge Partners Insurance, and Title Care National. Nate, thank you for joining. John Morreale is the president of Morreale Real Estate Services based out of Glen Ellen, Illinois. John first joined the relocation-focused law firm founded by his father in 1990, and the two went on to create Morreale Real Estate Services in 2000, so 25 years on, focused on providing support around a range of corporate relocation services. And for those of you that don't know Bob Olmsted, he's the president and COO of Sirva, where he oversees global relocation and moving operations, including government and military-related moves. He joined Sirva in 2014, bringing more than 20 years of experience in operations management, process management, and financial management. Before he started his career in mobility, Bob worked in accounting and is a CPA. All right, that is the high power we have here. So let's dive straight in. John, before we go much further, just really quickly, if you'll get everyone grounded on what are home sale programs. Obviously, certain verticals within our industry are familiar with that, but not everybody in our industry, even though the implications of what's going on could have repercussions for every single person in the mobility industry, regardless of vertical. What are home sale programs? And I think it's fair to say they've become a pretty important benefit for supporting moving Americans, American workers for several decades. But just help us understand what is the home sale program?
Yep. Well, the home sale program, like you said, really has been embedded kind of into the American workforce for decades and decades at this point. Home sale benefit is basically an employer-sponsored benefit for the employee. So the employee is being asked to relocate as part of their employment.
Correct.
And the employer has some benefits that they can make available to the employee, such as sheltering them from any large tax consequences from the move. So if someone has moving expenses or has some other, airplane visits and all of these kinds of things involved in moving or expenses in selling, if we didn't have a home sale program set up for the relocating families, there would be huge tax consequences to that
Mm.
family. And so the home sale programs are really set up to kind of shelter these families from some of the tax consequences. And generally, the way they work is once someone has agreed to be relocated, there is a whole industry of RMCs and other folks who will step in and kind of take possession of the home that is being sold, the home sale program. They'll take the responsibility for that house so that the relocating family can kind of move on. They know that they're going to get X amount of money for their house. They don't have to worry about getting it marketed. They don't have to worry about a whole bunch of things. They can get to their new location in a productive, burden-free way. So it's that moment where the corporation or an RMC or outside partner kind of takes possession of that home that is being sold as a result of the relocation, which brings us to this interesting issue that we're having today. Does a home sale program fit within this concept that many have of having outside people buying up residential real estate? And I think the important thing to mention here is all of these home sale programs, and there's various types, home buyer options, guaranteed buyouts, there's all kinds of them, but they're all temporary ownership. No one in the
Mm.
relocation space is acquiring and building portfolios of homes. They are just temporarily stepping in to benefit the relocating family and protecting them from some of the outside costs that may be incurred as a result of them accepting the relocation. So that's kind of the simplest form of a definition. And there's a lot of different forms in which it take, and people can do it different ways, but it's really an employer benefit for their employees who have accepted a relocation.
That's fantastic. Thank you, John, for that. So you talked about the tax sort of shield and like preventing unnecessary financial burdens for the employee that is being moved. But it also sounds to me like an important aspect of what you described is streamlining the entire move and actually shortening the amount of time that it takes for the employee to leave wherever they're based to go to where they need to be. So let me turn it over to Bob. Bob, WRC compiled data in the last couple of weeks from across the industry, and it already shows, and it's not even fully complete, but it already shows there's at least 20,000, if not a whole lot more, annual home sale programs or employees that are being moved, that are being supported through this kind of a home sale program. Uh, at a high level, from your client's perspective, just sort of making it really tangible, what are the benefits of leveraging this kind of a program for both the corporation as well as the employee, as you guys have seen it?
I think, the most important, and John mentioned it, is getting the employee in their new position, in their new location and productive as quickly as possible. Now, let me take a step back and say there's a benefit not only to the employee and the corporation, but to the employee's family.
Hmm.
What would happen without the home sale component is the employee 9 times out of 10 would end up in their new job, in their new location, leaving their family behind to deal with getting rid of the home, packing the home up and moving. By going through a home sale program, it gives us the ability to help corporate America get people to their new job productively with their family in tow so that they are focused on the job at hand and not worrying about all the components that have to go into disposing of a home. So we're able to step in, give them a fair market value for their home, and then we turn around and we'll market it and sell it. But the benefit for the corporation and the employee is getting them in their new role quickly. Now, the corporation gets the added benefit of when we created the product, the home equity or the um, home sale program was the origins of our industry. But over time, we've continued to add additional components that help renters get moved, help you actually move your goods, help you find the right location for your children to go to school, help your spouse find a job in the new location. Because think about it, in America, you're not only impacting the employee that's relocating, their spouse most of the time has to find a job also. So we've developed these programs to support the corporate move completely to get the employee and their family to the new location and productive as quickly as possible.
Gotcha. Super helpful. So building on that, as I'm listening to you, it sounds like it's not just so certainly the corporation is benefiting, the employee is benefiting, the employee's family is benefiting, but I think it actually sounds like maybe it goes beyond that. So Nate, let me turn to you. Doesn't it sounds like these are highly economically contributive sort of transactions that are occurring and people being moved, which should have an impact to the greater society.
Yeah, well, actually, the entire community. When relocation works, communities benefit immediately. Um, what and what is happening is it allows employees to move to critical locations quicker. And what Bob said was, the sooner you unlock equity, it has the ability to move talent. And so all of the aspects of closing a home and moving a family can benefit a community. In our particular case, when we move a lot of people, that includes mid-level employees, and it includes leadership. And oftentimes, in our with our power companies, we're moving them to a critical substation, and that there's a safety issue involved. When it's possibly the railroading industry, a railroad track circuit, you have to live very close to that particular piece of equipment to maintain safety standards. So this affects entire communities when you move a lot of workers somewhere. And in our case, the jobs are filled, projects stay on track, and economic activity happens faster. We've seen in Omaha that attracting talent depends on how easy it is to move here. And these programs directly support
that. Which is, I mean, the health of a community, the health of local economies is being directly impacted. So obviously the corporation is doing this because there's a business objective to move employees, whether it's leadership or mid-level employees or even junior employees. And that has a direct impact on their competitiveness. It also has the impact on the community's competitiveness and the local economy. So it sounds like all of this is really what it's doing is fueling competitiveness for the American workforce, for the American corporation, and for the overall economy as a whole. And so sort of a very obvious self-serving question to ask, but I'll throw it to Bob, you or John, either one of you want to take it. I think you already was embedded in what you described earlier, but if home sale programs go away because of what this bill is leaving open as a very broad definition of an institutional investor and preventing or prohibiting institutional investors from taking ownership of homes, even if it is temporarily, what's the implication of that if you were to bring it back to the employee and to the corporation? What's the implication of that home sale program going away? What does that mean for the corporation, for the employee, and for our industry, really?
I'll hop in there first, Bob.
Go ahead.
One of the things that I think we all acknowledge is there's some advantages we get here in the United States in doing business when we look in comparison to Europe or Asia. And I think one of the huge advantages we have is the fluidity of our workforce. That in the United States, we're able to move our labor around the situations. Like Nate said, if somebody open up a new hospital for a community, we are able to move employment into those new hospitals for those communities very quickly. If it's power stations, whatever it is, that fluidity of the labor workforce is certainly one of the major advantages we have here within the United States. And the real problem is if we got rid of the home sale program, it's kind of the linchpin of a lot of what the relocation industry does. So yes, as Bob mentioned, there's a lot of other services, foreign language training, immigration, work visa, all of that is kind of based though on this idea that we're kind of a holistic approach. There's a lot of things we do to help the family. And I think the linchpin really is this home sale component. Because imagine you being the relocating family. What is the biggest pain in the butt thing that you have to do? And that is to dispose of the real estate that you're leaving behind. All the rest is helpful, but that's the one critical aspect. And I think if the industry were to shrink a little bit, I think you'd have people less likely be willing to relocate. And unfortunately, sometimes when you turn down those relocating opportunities, those really aren't good for your long-term employment. And so I think it's really an unhealthy thing if we didn't have this program available to kind of keep our workforce at the forefront of being able to address the needs quickly around the country as things change. And I just think it would be very detrimental to the industry. I know it would be. And I think
Yeah.
one of the things that we do have to consider is, a lot of the work in this industry is federal employees.
Yeah.
And if you think about federal employees, these aren't C-suite people. These are people, white collar jobs, et cetera. And if you said to them, hey, as a part of your wanting to make a social impact, it's going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars to move on to your next job, they don't have the money or the wherewithal to be able to accept those jobs. So I think even in the federal government level, we really need to be careful about what we say and what our
Yeah.
unintended consequences are. So,
Yeah, just to add to that, the American dream is to own a home. That's what makes us different than a lot of the rest of the world. Now, owning a home comes with the benefits, but also comes with what John talked about. If you decide you need to move for work, now you have to get rid of that property. And John's absolutely right. One of our largest government contracts has to do with moving guards in this prison system. Those guards aren't going to be able to afford the cost of having to dispose of property every 5 years to move to their new location because that's what the government does. They don't want guards staying in one place. So when you think about, taking away that ability for corporations to support their employees in disposing of their property and finding a new property at the new location, and again, enjoying the American dream. Home ownership is something that we pride ourselves on. So to take that away, the other added consequence is, since this really is the center of what we do, the industry was founded, the company that founded this industry was called Home Equity. That was because that was what they were doing, was they were providing equity so people could move. When I was 5 years old, my father bought our home from that company, ironically enough. So relocation has been part of corporate America, and to John's point, we have the ability to move our labor very quickly, but if we take away that ability, it will trickle down to the other benefits that we've created over the years to help people that are renters, to help first-time home buyers. All those things start to get more and more expensive for corporate America to do because we don't have the ability anymore to have that cornerstone product that we founded this industry on.
Anupam,
Yeah,
real quick,
Look.
so 6644, it's about taking housing off the market. And if you really listen to what all of our companies are doing, home sale programs don't take homes off the market. They actually move them faster. This group is not investors. We're temporary facilitators of workforce mobility. We put more houses on the market, and things speed up, and also the commerce occurs. And when we're sitting and talking to our congressional people or our senators, once you hit that, once they see that, how important it is to unlock the equity, it makes a massive difference in their view of 6644.
Yeah, that's a great ad. The one thing that comes to mind listening to all of you speak is uh, something that's obvious but should be mentioned. For vast majority of Americans, the vast majority of their net worth is tied up in their home.
No question.
So, and you start messing around with that, it takes away their ability to do pretty much anything in life, right? Because that's where their money is tied up. So you're exactly right that this is it will have a crippling impact on the ability for people to move, which is going to then have a very negative impact on the entire mobility industry, if you will. It could. But turning to the positive and what folks can do about this, and the call to action. So every single one of you on here, and many of you that are not in this one take, but industry leaders from across the RMC landscape and beyond, have already been actively engaging with representatives and senators in your jurisdictions, wherever that might be throughout the United States. But there's a lot of folks that don't already have that connectivity with their representatives or their senators, as the case might be. Nate, just really quickly, I know you've spent a lot of time over the years building up that relationship with, for example, Senator Flood in Nebraska. For somebody that's thinking right now, like, okay, I don't already know my senator or my representative. Well, like, what can I do?
Well,
First of all, how valuable is it that you've spent that time, made the investment to build that relationship? And then two, how should they be thinking of it?
yeah, the good news is most policymakers generally want to strengthen their communities. And when you have an ongoing relationship with them, you can bring real world changes to them, so they can see it quickly and clearly. In our case, when we're actually trying to bring several thousand employees to Nebraska. And so when I talked to our Nebraska contingent about that, they saw immediately how important unlocking the home equity of these individuals and helping them move and helping them settle in our community. And so the two things, one thing you asked is, why have we created these long-term relationships with the policymakers, and we do it because the relationships matter, because they create trust before an issue arises. So when something like this comes up, there's already a shared understanding of how a relationship or a relocation impacts jobs, growth, and the community. But the good news is, if you don't have that relationship, know that these individuals, because you'll bring, for instance, when we went and spoke to people in, even though I'm from Nebraska, we spoke to people in Georgia, and we talked about how I'm not allowed to say clients, but there's a sweet drink manufacturer somewhere in Georgia, and we could tell them how many people were moving from one place to another, and it resonated with the staff, so they allowed us to talk to their banking person, who saw immediately how it would affect their community. And so you can go and see your congressperson or your senator because you know what's going on in your community, and they care about that. And I'm just telling you, across the board, talent, mobility, and talent is important in every single part of our nation. And so the work we do is fundamentally important.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So there's two calls to actions for everybody in our industry, if you're watching this one take or not. One is reach out, as Nate said, and connect with your representative or your senator, the policymakers in your jurisdiction. Help them understand this issue and the implication it has not only for our industry self-servingly, but also for the corporation and for employees that will be impacted by this, negatively so. Second, there's a sign-on letter that WRC has organized, and it is available on our website, and we'll put the link in here. But sign on to that letter and make sure that you're having your voice heard. So that is not an either or. If you can do both, or anything else that you can think of that WRC can or should be doing. But every one of the folks here has already spent time actually sitting down across representatives in DC and policymakers in DC, and helping them understand the issue. And we all need to be doing that in any which way we can, because once folks understand the issue, it's a no-brainer. There is absolutely no justifiable logical reason for what our industry does to get swept up in what Congress is trying to do by making housing more affordable and more accessible. That's precisely what we are making happen through the home equity, through the home sale program, by helping folks unlock their equity. So, Nate.
Yeah. So one thing 6644 is trying to do is trying to get more houses on the market. And ironically, in today's housing market, it isn't driven by opportunity, which has been so in the past. It's actually, most moves today aren't want to moves, they're have to moves, like
Right.
relocation, divorce, major life changes. And so, oddly enough, when the market tightens, what's left over are have to moves, and relocations are at the center of that. And so,
Yeah.
getting your Congress people, your senators to understand this is a critical aspect of today's economy right now. It shines a light even brighter.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. Actually, there's the lack of clarity in the definition, the breadth of the definition of institutional investor is problematic because without any clarification and qualification, because Nate, I know one of the topics, other topics that you're very passionate about is housing for disabled adults and so on. Most of that housing is owned by institutional investors. They're providing a service by making that happen. Senior
Exactly.
living, with the silver
So,
tsunami coming, that is owned by and funded by institutional investors. So there's a whole other set of issues that is getting swept up in this, but obviously very important to us is the mobility piece.
well,
Go ahead.
intellectual developmental disabilities, for people to live with dignity in a group home setting in a residential neighborhood, that's owned by a corporation, and that's thousands of these homes. And the bill basically says if you have more than 350, then you have to divest of that. Can you
Wow.
imagine? Can you imagine pouring people out into their communities when they have a situation where they're living with dignity in a group home? It's a lot of things have to change on this point.
Yeah. John, did you want to say
Yeah, I
anything
just
final
wanted to
on
say,
Bob?
kind of tie into what was Nate saying about reaching out to our representatives. And I know that a lot of people are hesitant. Maybe I've never reached out before, but I
Yeah.
think one of the ways to approach it, and it was certainly very insightful to me, I kind of looked at like how many people do I work with in my community in the relocation space. So we all manage supply chains, right? In my supply chain, there are 14,000 people in my supply chain: title companies, lawyers, appraisals, inspections, abstractors, notaries. In every county, all 3,200 counties in the country, we all have suppliers. And so if you're looking for a way to feel comfortable to reach out, look within your supply chain. How many people am I working with within my representative's area? It's not just me, it's all those other suppliers that are relying upon this work. So maybe you can collectivize a little bit and say, hey,
Yeah.
I'm calling on behalf of these 23 people in my area who are working within this industry, and we would love a few minutes of your time. I think
Great
that's a
idea.
powerful thing. We all don't realize how many jobs we're creating
Yeah.
in the workforce for this task. And I think it just trying to gives a way to empower someone to feel comfortable to reach out. It isn't just you, it's you and all your partners in the industry that you're really representing. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bob, any final comments from you?
I mean, I agree with both Nate and John. I do think it's an opportunity to exercise, the power that we have being in this great country we are, and reach out to our leaders and to make sure they understand just the impact that all of this can have if it's not recognized. Nate made a good point that, we're helping facilitate moving properties more quickly. To John's point, we've made a way for the workforce to move around, and then the final point that I've made a couple times is what makes us unique as in the United States is the fact that we have the American dream. We all want to have home ownership, and I want that opportunity for all of my children as they grow up and move into the workforce. And I think it's an important thing to make sure that it gets recognized. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, thanks to each one of you, gentlemen, for taking the time for helping expound on this issue and really shine a light on it. I hope everyone listening was able to follow along and understand the gravity of this. It's sort of similar to the tax deductibility of moving expenses being taken away in the TCJA Act several years ago, which had a pretty debilitating impact on our industry. This rises to that level of importance. So again, rallying cry for everybody in our industry to make sure that we are getting heard, doing everything we can to help our leaders understand the implication of the inadvertent inclusion of our services in what this housing bill is trying to do, which is really a good thing. And so let's make sure that we're helping our leaders understand that they do a good thing and not inadvertently do a bad thing while trying to do that. Reach out with any questions. WRC is here to support every single person and business in our industry. We look forward to being connected with you all and look forward to feedback. Thank you, gentlemen, again for your time, and
Thank
look
you.
forward to catching up with you another time soon. Take care.
Thanks.